First take coming your way. The Celtics lost game 1 to the Heat without 2 of their key players, but is good news on the horizon for Tatum's squad. And did you see the Warriors last night? I don't know. It looks like Stephen A's prediction may come true. Can anyone in the playoffs stop them? So much. Warriors took game 1 of the Western Conference Finals 112-87. Luka the Don had 20 points, but was 6 for 18 and 3 of 10 from deep. He had 7 turnovers, a huge testament to that Warriors defense and Andrew Wiggins. The Splash Brothers were hot in the second half. Steph Curry finished with 21 points, and all 15 of Clay's points were scored after halftime. I mentioned that Warriors defense. Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. How did you feel about it?
We did an excellent job defensively, but we're under no illusion that we've figured anything out. We just played really hard and competed and tried to contest shots.
They were doing a great job on me, especially in the second half. But I think I got a bit better. That's not me. And as a leader, you know, I gotta be better for the whole group. So that's on me.
See the cut on Luka's face? That is Andrew Wiggins' finger that did that to him. I'm going to start with you, Jay Will, on this one. It was a little bit of a blowout last night in game 1. Do you think the Mavs are going to be able to make this a series?
Yes. A couple things to address here, though. But one, it looked like Luka came out of a heavyweight fight.
Right.
I mean, damn. The game was so physical last night. That's exactly how you need to play if you're Golden State. But there's been a lot of conversations around Luka being a top 5 player in the league. And let me say this. If Luka is top 5 offensively, then Monica, he has to be bottom 5 defensively. I just got to state that off the top right now, because watching him, there were so many times, and you notice, Monica, as a player, former player watching the game, when you see a guy get stripped and turns the ball over, and then the camera panels down to the other end, and you don't see that person literally come into the frame when he's the one that turned the ball over. As a former hooper, you're saying, yo, come on, man, you got to give me something. Now, I know that what he brings to the table offensively massively outweighs how deficient he is on the defensive end. But damn, that's number one. Number two, look, this team took 48 threes. They only made 11. In the first half, a lot of those threes were wide open threes. So as much as we're going to sit up here and praise Golden State for their defensive efforts, Monica, and I get it, Andrew Wiggins, he played his tail off defensively, stayed attached, was detail-oriented, stayed according to the scouting report. But at the end of the day, Luka typically makes shots that are challenging, difficult shots. So for me, if they're knocking down threes at a high clip, we're not talking about how great Golden State is defensively. We're talking about how they're shooting lights out. So, look, Game 1 is a feel-out game. We all know this. I think Golden State is a good team. They're probably favored in the series. But by no means do I count Dallas out of this series off one game. None.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Jay. And again, you cannot praise Andrew Wiggins enough for the way that he was able to defend Luka. But when you look at it in totality, he's able to stay that close to him because he knows he has tremendous support, because to your point, nobody could buy a three-point shot if you were wearing a Dallas Mavericks jersey. And so to me, not only will Luka stop and survey and acknowledge the way that he's been played, his role players absolutely have to help him out, because then you force the Warriors defense to play it honest in terms of collapsing on him. There were a number of times we've gone over different clips in the tape, and you can see Dwight Powell setting a screen, or Jalen Brunson in the peripheral, or Dorian Finney-Smith. But because those guys could not get water from a water faucet, there was no reason to go out and contend them. Now, on the flip side, in terms of Dallas making this a series, Steph and Clay and the amount of action in the Warriors offense continues to be problematic, right? And Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock are guys that you respect as defenders. But they just had to work so hard to stay attached to those guys because of the offense. And so I expect Jason Kidd to look at this thing in totality and make some adjustments. I know that Luka and the Mavs are one of the slower-paced teams in the league, and Luka likes to take his time and make it work. But they've got to figure out a way to get some easy baskets. I think back to the glimpses of Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson in the Jazz series, at points during the Sun series. They have the talent to get out and get in transition a little bit and contend maybe with some of the Warriors' stifling defense. But I still think this is going to be a series, absolutely.
Monica, can I tell you, we always end up talking about, who is Dallas going to get? What is Mark Cuban going to do to bring another superstar into play with Luka Doncic? But I got to tell you, if I'm Reggie Bullock, if I'm Dorian Finney-Smith, There are a lot of times throughout the course of a game, Jalen Brunson, I'm looking at this dude out the side of my eye, be like, yo, man, you are a liability. Like, you are killing us on the defensive end. And we're trying to execute. I understand, but it goes both ways, right? Because what he brings to the table, Monica, is incredible offensively. He's a genius. He's a savant. I love it. But there are times if you're executing, if you're out there, you're denying passing lanes, you know this back screen is coming, you actually play, and then you see him stand up and he gets you beat because of the continuity, that exposes him more because you can't hide him in the defense. Whereas vice versa, to a degree, with Steph Curry, when he's on Dorian Finney-Smith, they didn't involve him in a lot of action. Steph was just sitting in the corner, saving his legs offensively. So that's my thing. If you're taking away Luka's legs defensively by making him move with constant movement, that takes away from some of the energy and the pop he brings to the offensive end. I'm just trying, it may not be fair, but we all know life ain't fair. I'm still looking at him a little bit sideways if you can't give me some kind of effort defensively.
I'll give you, I might look at him sideways for 0.5 seconds, and I'm going to be like, no. That man keeps us afloat.
I ain't going to say nothing. I'm just thinking it. I'm thinking it.
I might think it, and then I'm going to say to myself, you know what? This is what it is to be a teammate. I'm going to be better on the defensive end for him because I know he carries me on the offensive end. But, Jay, you're right, Jay, but I think when we start talking about, and you've been talking about your top 5 today, talent and the ability to score covers a multitude of shortcomings. As much as you and I might get excited about defense, we don't have debates about top 5 defenders, and you can argue whether or not Dorian Finney-Smith, not so much Draymond, because Draymond has been highly touted and appreciated as a defender, Reggie Bullock, you can argue whether or not those guys have gotten their due, and I think part of the reason that the conversation is around Andrew Wiggins' defense last night is because we don't discuss him as a defender often, right? And so the reality of the league is the guys that make buckets, we're going to figure out everything else, and I will go back to some reporting that Cassidy Hubbard did in the Phoenix series where Jason Kidd talked to Luka about the 2 seconds. Like, we just need you to hold for a short enough amount of time that we can support you defensively as a team.
2 seconds. Just give me 2 seconds.
Just come on, get in that stance. Give it to me.
I'm going to keep it PG. All I'm saying is that
What?
Monica,
Oh, wait a minute,
no.
What is happening?
All I'm going to say,
wait a minute.
Monica, is...
That's not, no. Let's bring it back. Come on, Christine, get it back on track.
I'm bringing it back. All I'm saying, though, is but we are talking about defense to a degree in this series, though, right? Because what we've done, the conversation has shifted. We're talking a lot about Jimmy Butler, right? People are saying, hey, he's a top 5 player in the league. I'm not saying he's my top 5 player in the league, but conversations are starting to trend in that direction. And what do you value about Jimmy Butler is that offensively, he's kind of went to a different level that we've seen in years past, right? His stats in the postseason are comparable to Michael Jordan in the single postseason, which is absurd. But what he brings to the table defensively, Jason Tatum, we're now calling him a top 2-way player. So I know what you're saying about we don't factor defense in as much as offense, but it is starting to trend as what kind of player are you on both sides of the court?
Okay, let's stay in the West. We were talking about defense, obviously, and defense was huge for the Warriors. They didn't do anything crazy offensively. Monty, like you mentioned, their 3-pointers. Steph missed his first 5 threes. Klay didn't have any points until the second half. So who is the most important player on the Warriors team right now? Would it be Andrew Wiggins in his defense?
In yesterday's game, sure. He set the tone. But when it comes to this team, it continues to be Steph Curry, and there's no doubt about it. Listen, a missed 5 shots is nothing for the dude that's going to pull up and hit however many from deep. Like, shoot or shoot to stay hot and shoot or shoot to get hot. And I think beyond the misses, like, you can call them just warm-ups, the way that Steph and Klay, Steph in particular, both move opens up everything else. Quiet as is kept, prior to last night's performance, the pool party had turned into a little bit of a kiddie pool, right? And this offensive side of the Warriors' performance, we had some questions. They was throwing the ball all over the place versus Memphis. Draymond pointed out they got beat by 55 points. And while you weren't necessarily alarmed, everybody involved, including folks in Warriors uniforms, would acknowledge that that wasn't necessarily championship basketball. But you get into this series, Steph is moving all over the place. Klay is moving all over the place. Jordan Poole is back in action, and their offense is flowing. The ball isn't sticking. That is signature to what the Warriors do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would agree that it's Stephen Curry. Do you know, like, it's really interesting, and maybe it's more so, Monica, out of my show on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Every day I have to deal with Max, so there's a little bit of a pet peeve about what happens when I mention the name Stephen Curry, because the conversation always shifts to, well, he doesn't have a finals MVP. I'm like, this man is basically averaging 30 points per game in the Western Conference Finals. 30 points per game. In the NBA Finals, he's averaging 26.5. Last night, Stephen Curry gave me 12 rebounds. 12 rebounds as a smaller guard. So his ability to constantly move, along with buying time for Klay to come alive in the third quarter, when they hit offensively, and that's going to be the challenge for Dallas, right? If Steph and Luka cancel each other out, if Klay comes to the party, along with what Jordan Poole did against Mavs Cleveland, oh my, last night, you talk about Luka being a liability, they targeted Cleveland as well, right? All the time, and Jordan Poole had him on skates. This team just has such a high offensive power clip that if they all hit in all cylinders, it's going to be a problem for Dallas the whole series.
All right, Monty, let's take our talents to South Beach. We're living vicariously through you. We get more Eastern Conference action tonight as the Heat take on the Celtics for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami took Game 1 of the series 118-107. And the biggest question, who will be on the court for both teams? Miami's Kyle Lowry is still out for the fourth game in a row with a hamstring injury. And for Boston, Al Horford is listed as doubtful. And Marcus Smart is probable for Game 2. So Jimmy Butler was a force in Game 1, scoring the second most points by a Heat player in the conference finals, only behind LeBron James in 2012. So Butler's playoff run has been historic, as his 3 40-point games are the most in a single postseason in Heat history. So Smart, probable, definitely not at full strength. Knowing all of that, which team has the edge in Game 2, J. Will?
I'm going to go with the home team, the Miami Heat. They're favored by Vegas as odds. But also say this, Marcus Smart is a pivotal piece to this team. The thing that concerned me, Monica, and I would have probably given the edge to the Celtics, is when I heard the report by Woj, when he said, all right, he's now out of the walking boot. He moved around a little bit in practice, but it was still gingerly. And I know having Marcus Smart on the floor is a dynamic change, right? Jason Tatum no longer has to initiate the offense. Those 4 turnovers he had in the third quarter, it looked like he was dog tired, right? Coming off the series, Game 7, literally days before. Miami had gotten more rest. I understand all that, but also he's the equalizer to Jimmy Butler. And I wonder, even having him back at 70, 80%, it's still a better percentage because you can't target Peyton Pritchard anymore. Right? Him playing 30 minutes, we all know what time that was. As soon as they saw Peyton Pritchard walk on the court, any hooper was like, oh, come here, Peyton. And it's no disrespect to Peyton. It's just what it is when you're going in the Eastern Conference Finals against guys like Jimmy Butler and guys who have a coach in Eric Spoelstra that will target the weakness of a link, right, to a degree. Now you can't do that with Marcus Smart, but still, I still give the slight favorite to Miami just because I don't know what version of Marcus Smart is going to come back and participate in Game 2 tonight.
Jay, I'm inclined to agree with you. It's not a wide margin if Marcus Smart does not play, right? And so I think one of the things that we've appreciated about this Celtics squad is their ability to bounce back after losses. They are 9-1 after their 10 losses in terms of the game after the loss, right? But you dig a little deeper into that, Jason Tatum in those games has not been without Marcus Smart or Al Horford. And so I think their ability to bounce is heavily contingent on who is available. Now, to your point, Marcus Smart, his attitude, his energy, his intensity, he absolutely sets the tone for this Boston Celtics squad. And if he's on the floor, I give the Celtics an opportunity to get this game here in Miami tonight because I trust them not to turn the ball over again a gazillion times, which literally breathed life into what the Miami Heat wanted to do. And I think Ime Udoka will make some of the necessary adjustments, a big one being Smart on the floor versus Pritchard. And then furthermore, when you look into who has most success defending Jimmy in terms of effective field goal percentage, it's actually Jaylen Brown, and then it's Marcus Smart. But again, if Jimmy, to me, in the half court, is a different challenge than Jimmy getting out off of live ball turnovers, off of a defensive rebound, full head of steam. And so I'm gonna go Smart is available at a decent percentage or he wouldn't be playing. And I think the Celtics respond, but I might be wrong, and I could very well be wrong on that.
Monica, don't you think this needs to happen, though? And I've seen it over their undefeated postseason at home for Miami. After every game and spending time down in South Florida, going down there for our whole radio kind of affiliate tour that we did, everybody always talks about, and it's a huge headline that deserves a lot of praise. I mean, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus are two undrafted players that have been balling out, for players balling out, and everybody's been singing their praises. If you're the Boston Celtics, you're trying to flip that narrative around. You're trying to have the narrative tomorrow being like, yes, they have 2 undrafted players that start for their franchise in the Eastern Conference Finals, and this is what happens when you start 2 undrafted players. We take advantage of it, we leverage it, and we beat it up. So you can't start them anymore because we have not asked ourselves one time throughout this playoff series, where's Kyle Lowry? When is he coming back? We haven't felt the need to have a sense of urgency about bringing Kyle Lowry back because Gabe Vincent and Max Strus are doing their thing. They need to flip that narrative.
So
That's very true.
It's funny, though, Jay, because I watched Kyle Lowry a lot through the course of the first game. And he's talking to Gabe, and he's engaged, and he's energetic. And I actually think as this series wanes on, you I think you will miss Kyle's pesky nature defensively and his knack for hitting some big shots as this series continues to get tighter. But I don't know. I think the Gabe Vincent and Max Strus thing, while they are undrafted, it's not like they are second-year players. Like, they've been a part of this Miami system.
Yeah.
I believe Gabe is 25. I think Max is around the same age. And so more than anything, this is the tip of the cap to what Miami does in terms of their system and their development in the same vein that we talk about what the Warriors do with their system and their development. And so I hear you, but I also don't know it's like they just pull some bums off the street because they've done is made viable and contributing NBA players out of those guys.
Understand? I'm just saying, if you're Marcus Smart, if you're Jaylen Brown, if you're Jason Tatum, you'd be like, come on, man. It's time. Like, you don't look at it that way, Monica.
I mean, sure. Whatever you got to do to get out.
Way. Yeah, you have to look at it that way.
That's true.
Yeah, I got you.
Monty, we've heard Jay Will all morning talk about his thoughts on Jimmy Butler. I'm going to ask you this question, and then we'll ask Jay Will. Who is the best remaining player in the postseason?
This is where Jay and I disagree because I do believe it's Jimmy Butler right
I
now.
didn't say anything yet.
You just saw
I
the
didn't say
list.
anything yet. I'm just over here.
I know, but I talked to you this morning already on KJM, so I already know where we're going with this. You look at the list and the company that he is in, he went into game 1 averaging a career high 28.7. I imagine it probably has ticked up after that 40-plus point performance. In this conversation, for me, I am not willing to separate the two-way nature of Jimmy's game from some of the other great players that remain in this playoffs. To me, the conversation at this point is between Jimmy Butler and Jason Tatum because of just that. There's no way that this thing doesn't come down to important defensive stops down the stretch, whether we talk about in the each conference finals or in the finals ultimately. So I just cannot separate that. And so to me, it's Jimmy Butler. He has been reliable on both sides. He continues to get better. He's in fantastic shape for this moment, and he's a tremendous leader for this Miami Heat organization.
Monica, let me address a couple of things. Number one, I see this is what First Take does. They try to trick you with the wording, right? Try to look at right underneath in the top. Best player left in the postseason. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, well, there's a difference for me as a hooper between who is playing the best and who is the best. So there is no doubt in my mind that Jimmy Butler is playing the best. The numbers are comparable to Michael Jordan. The 41 points, I mean, the stat line is ridiculous. But also, let's be real about this as hoopers. And I'm not saying it's not difficult what they've been able to do. You win against the Atlanta Hawks and the 76ers, right? No Joel Embiid, orbital fracture right here. James Harden shelved himself. So I get it. Big time game, though, against the Boston Celtics without Marcus Smart, without Al Horford. Not taking anything away from the numbers from Jimmy Butler. Still playing the best out of anybody right now. But the best player left in the playoffs is Stephen Curry. Again, I don't know why we always, and it takes me into the whole top 5 argument that people are trying to say, well, Jimmy Butler's top 5 right now. I'm like, what are we? The guy last year, even though they got bounced early in the playoffs, averaged 14.5 points in the playoff series, right? So I get that when it matters the most, you want Jimmy Butler on your team. But to me, my top 5 players are guys that do it the whole year and in the playoffs to a degree, right? When they are full throttle. So this is a conversation for me, Stephen Curry. His resume speaks for itself. The amount of championships, the unanimous MVP, I have to factor in the entire body of work. And last night, maybe, has he had a signature game moment where he's dropped 50 yet? No, because he has more weapons on his team that are helping him get there. But I'm not going to sit up here on national TV and tell you that Stephen Curry isn't the best player left in the postseason, because he is, in my opinion. Jimmy Butler is playing the best, but Stephen Curry is the best player.
Okay, so if we're going to go nuanced, because I love this, and I think you make a great argument. Obviously, Steph is a part of that conversation. But if we're going to go nuanced, Jay, are we then separating these players from the system in which they play as well?
Well, I mean, you can keep them part of the system. I can make a case that Jimmy Butler is a byproduct of the SPO system down in Miami and Pat Riley. I mean, you can make that case on how they defend. I know that the culture is built around Jimmy Butler. The culture is also built around Stephen Curry, is it not?
Okay. Yeah, I'm asking you though, because now let's just humor me. Let's separate whoever our guys are from their systems, right?
Okay. Yep.
I need a bucket. I don't want to go too not actual basketball, but I need a bucket one-on-one. Like, you still taking Steph? I'm taking Jimmy. Like, in terms of the player at the moment, if it's just me on an island, I'm taking Jimmy right now.
Okay, I'll take Steph. That's fine. I mean, if you're doing it in nuances, I mean, the one-on-one, that's all these different silos of conversation. But if you're saying one-on-one, I got you. I see what you're saying about Jimmy Butler getting a tough bucket because of his size and his frame and how he can get that off. But if you give Stephen Curry some space, I mean, people try to sleep on Steph not having a top 3 handle in the NBA. Top 3 handle.
He does have tremendous handle. I'll give you that.
So he has handle and he has a shot from the outside. And people try to minimize or marginalize his importance on the floor. Like, even when he doesn't have a game where he drops 30, his sheer presence on the floor opens up lanes for other people to attack because you can't hedge off him.
100%.
You can't help off him. So
100%.
That's a major thing. Like, but I hear where you're trying. I hear where we're going with that conversation.
Right. Like, if we're just going to go down the first take rabbit hole in the nuance of our one-on-one basketball game on an island, like, yes. I continue to go back to the two-way nature of Jimmy's game. And that's really the only argument that I would have for you versus Steph, because you're right. Steph's handle continues to be underrated. Obviously, that whole system is built around him, and he's the most important piece as they continue to go for a championship run. By the way, y'all, once upon a time, I was like, the championship window was closed. Yeah, I was bugging.
What happened was,
it's fine.
What happened was,
what happened was,
all of us, Ma, you good?
I'm gonna run that back. That's why I don't put my opinions out there. Monica, I love you so much. Have so much fun in Miami.
Love you too.
All right, Monica.
Thank you, guys. See you later. We got some football to talk about. We go to Philly. The Eagles took a big step in filling out their secondary, agreeing to a 1-year contract with cornerback James Bradberry. The team announced on Wednesday the deal will pay him $7.5 million, with the total possible value being $10 million, a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. He is expected to make an immediate impact, starting opposite Darius Slay. So Bradberry is one of the many notable pieces that the Eagles have added this offseason as they have addressed the rest of the defense through free agency and the draft. They also added a much-needed weapon in A.J. Brown as the Eagles ranked in the bottom 5 in receiving yards last season. All right, so we got some other friends here to talk a little NFL. Kimberly Martin and Rob Ninkovich here. Let's start here. The Eagles are the team to be in the... this is the question. Are the Eagles the team to be in the NFC? I almost answered the question for you. Kimberly, let's start with you.
No. If you had said that was... if you're going to say the Eagles are the favorite, no. And you know why? We talk so much about quarterbacks in the NFL. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. You might as well sit out. Despite all the additions, the one question mark that everyone still has is the Eagles quarterback. I love Jalen Hurts. I love coming out of the draft, the way people talk about him, how guys rally around him. It's infectious. I think he's going to be a really good starter. We still have to see him this season go out there. And the best quarterback in the NFC East is still Dak Prescott. And that is the only thing that separates, in my mind, the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Because the Dallas Cowboys, that gap between them and the rest of the NFC East, as people like to joke, that gap is shrunk. But again, the quarterback, a lot of confidence in Jalen, but he still has to go out and prove the naysayers wrong. He has to prove the Eagles right. And he's a guy who's up for the challenge, but he still has to do it.
Kimberly, you are wrong. You are wrong on this one. Listen, I think the Eagles on draft night, come on now. Kimberly, hear me out, okay? Here we go. Okay. Listen, draft night, when A.J. Brown went to the Eagles, that is when the Eagles jumped over the Cowboys, because right now, if you're the Cowboys, look, everybody loves diamonds, okay? You know how diamonds are made? Pressure. A lot of pressure on them Cowboys. So the Cowboys, every single year, you hear Jerry Jones, well, now, hey, we've got a team we put together here. We're going to put ourselves in the Super Bowl. And they don't make it because they're under the pressure. The Eagles right now, they just come flying under the radar. They already won their Super Bowl a few years ago, okay? So listen, you got Devontae Smith. You got A.J., you got the quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts right now is on this, like, upswing, and he's going to continue to grow and develop and be a better quarterback, and you're building the team around him. So you add more weapons. He's got the offensive line. He's got the defense. They got the cornerbacks. They got the pass rush. So for me, they got the draft pick in the pass rush. So for me, I think the Eagles right now are the team to beat, and there's only 2 teams in this division. The rest, you know, I'm not believing in the Giants right now. I'm not believing in the football team. So I think it's between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and the Eagles just jumped the Cowboys.
Rob, first off, there's no need to slight my Giants. We didn't do anything to you. We're trying to figure out life, okay, moving forward. A lot of questions around Daniel Jones.
Sorry.
But
sorry.
I would have to probably agree with Kimberly on this one, just because for me, I love Jalen Hurts. And I get it. Look, they were able to steal James Bradbury from the Giants as far as a corner. Like, I get what their defense is doing. I get all the moves that the Eagles have made. And I agree with you. A.J. Brown has a chance to be blockbuster with them, right? But I've heard so many people, and one of the things I've always had questions about with Jalen is that there are a lot of questions, even around last year, about his decision-making and his accuracy. So if those are 2 big questions around him moving forward, and we're projecting, to a degree, I know that Dak Prescott has been in the MVP conversation before he got injured a couple of years ago. Now, I know last year wasn't his best year, but we are still projecting. I know there's holes that they have for the Dallas Cowboys, and losing Amari Cooper definitely hurts. But still having the pieces that the Cowboys have, what they did in the division last year, I respect the Eagles that they're up and coming, but I still think the Eagles need to take it away from the Cowboys, rather than we come out of the gate saying that, oh, it's the Eagles and now the Cowboys are chasing the Eagles. I still think there's respect that deserves to be put on the shoulders of the Dallas Cowboys for what they've been able to achieve with Dak Prescott thus far.
Nink, it's real simple. Which quarterback in this moment would you choose? You would choose Dak. That is the only thing that is making me say the Dallas Cowboys are the team to beat, because they won 12 games last year, they won the division last year, and they have the quarterback. All that said, my guy, I am with you on how the Eagles have the best O-line and D-line. They came out of this draft you are so excited about this Eagles team. And if you're choosing with your heart, I get it. The Eagles, they're the team that's on the upswing. I get it. But we still have to see it. And if there are questions about downfield accuracy, if there are questions about decision making, if there are questions about whether the Eagles will, then you can't say right now that the Eagles are the team to beat. Week 5, we might be able to say that. But right now, no.
All right, I guess I'm just following my heart on this one, and I'm going with the Eagles.
Which is fine. We know emotions. You're an emotional guy, but Jay and I are
emotional guy.
Oh my gosh.
Rob, I am curious, where would you have Dak ranked as it relates to the top quarterbacks in the NFL, as opposed to where you have Jalen Hurts
He's up
ranked?
there. No, so yes, Dak is above Jalen Hurts, no doubt about it. And I think Dak is a tremendous quarterback. But again, your team has to really rally around your quarterback. Your quarterback has to play great down the stretch. And I feel like in the early parts of the season, Dak really played well. He played lights out. I mean, you look at week 1, that Cowboys-Tampa game, it was insane. And then things kind of fell apart a little bit, and you saw the chemistry of that team really was starting to kind of pull on each end, and they were struggling a little bit, and they didn't make it to where we expected them to go. So now, you know, you look at the offseason, you got certain guys that were like, you know, I got more money over here, or I got the same money, I'm just going to leave the Cowboys because I want to go to another team. And you saw some guys moving around and maybe some unhappy players on that team, which eventually could mess up that chemistry. And there's 2 parts of a team that are very important. It's chemistry and communication. If you don't have chemistry, you can't really go that far. So I think that this team right now with Dak, they're going to have to search for that identity, that chemistry. And if they can do that, yeah, they could be a great football team. But there's a lot of pressure on this team to make it not only to a playoff, but to get to a Super Bowl. And every single year, Jerry Jones says, I'm chomping at the bit. I don't have many bites left. I need to get back to a Super Bowl, and that can affect the team. And I like the way the Eagles have approached this offseason. They went out and they approached the needs to help Jalen Hurts. You go and you get A.J. Brown. You go and get a really good pass rusher, because we all know there's two parts to an NFL team that are really important: your pass rush and your quarterback play. And if you have more weapons like A.J. Brown, and you go have a young, awesome receiver core, and then you go get the cornerbacks. So they got 2 cornerbacks, they got a pass rush, they got the receiver, and now we're just going to have to see if Jalen Hurts can do it. If he can do it, I think this team is great.
We have to see. We have to see. That's the operative. I'm glad you ended on that. We have to see. Good job, Rob.
All I'm saying,
he's following his heart. He's following his heart.
If the question was, who do you trust more down the stretch, I would have a different answer. You know what I mean? Exactly. I have a different answer.
The competition in the SEC is fierce, and now it's getting feisty. Texas A&M claimed this year's top recruiting class.
We were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future, because more and more people are doing it. So it's tough.
Ooh, all the drama. So we're calling on the mouth of the South for this one, and the one and only Paul Feinbaum joining us. Paul, what are your thoughts on Saban calling out Jimbo Fisher?
Floor is yours, Paul. Have fun with this one.
It'll be great.
I was shocked, and I'm shocked, Christine and Jay Will, because Nick Saban doesn't do things like this. He doesn't get into firefights with other coaches. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He doesn't have to. He usually says, I'm not accusing the other guy of cheating, even though we know he is. But in this case, I think it's been a slow burn. He lost to Jimbo Fisher not only on the field, first time he'd ever lost to an assistant, then he lost to him in recruiting, and he didn't just lose. Jimbo Fisher had the best recruiting class of all time. That was after an 8-4 record. So I think Saban finally had enough. He's been talking to people for months, friends, media people off the air. And then last night at an event promoting a world event to Birmingham involving young people from all over the world. This was not a football event. He just went crazy. He went off. Crazy. That might be a good way of describing it as well. And I'm not really understanding why. I understand the animus toward Jimbo Fisher, but he also went after Deion Sanders, which has really rattled a lot of cages, including Deion Sanders and including the player who is a number 1 player in the country that he mentioned. So it is the college football world on a late May day is upside down.
Paul, let me workshop this thought commentary I have with you in real time here, and just correct me if I'm wrong. Was there a player that was a quarterback that was flown across all the flyover states to get to Alabama with his entire family to participate at Alabama football? Okay. Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, well, we don't do that type of stuff. Okay, Coach Saban, and I have all the respect for you in the world. I've met him. I've been in his office, Paul. He's an incredible human being, an incredible leader. But like, and also something else around the word cheating that still rubs me the wrong way, whereas I call it fairly compensating. The problem to me more so seems like Nick Saban is a little bit late to the party with what the payroll needs to be in order for his team to be at the highest level possible when it comes to being number 1 recruiting. And the reality is that he has to understand how to play this game differently. Now, I think he has the ability to adapt over time and change because he's a head coach, right? He's been able to pivot in the midst of games. I think he'll pivot now. But when you're talking about comparing it to the likes of Texas A&M with oil money, when you talk to the likes of Oklahoma or what's happening now at USC with Lincoln Riley, like, it doesn't need to come from your program. It needs to come from people around your program. Guys can get national deals, but guess what? Guys do want to get compensated. Lane Kiffin is picking people up in Rolls Royces, okay, on recruiting trips. So let's understand what the game is now. You may not like it, but this is where we are. And don't sound like a guy who's just complaining, oh, I like the back when. Like, let's adapt and pivot, Nick. Am I wrong here in saying that?
You're right. And everything, we can't add any more to the Nick Saban legacy. But he is 70 years old. Now, what does that mean? That means he has competed in an era when this was verboten. But it isn't anymore. Jay, well, cheating is going on at every level of college athletics. And the NCAA isn't doing anything about it because they're incapable of. So I think in many ways, that's really the problem for Nick Saban. You know, he may think he's doing it honestly, and maybe he is to a degree, but you're right. You know, Bryce Young came all the way from California. He got $1 million NIL deal last year, and that's just the way this thing is going. And so ultimately, I think Saban has made an error here. He may be telling the truth in the purest sense, but college athletics is no longer sacrosanct. This is going on, and the Supreme Court essentially said it's okay in a very narrow ruling. So I think he's erred here. For Nick Saban, showing grievances is not a good look, and I don't think anything's going to come of it because Alabama will still be relevant. They'll probably win the national championship this year. It may push Saban closer to retirement. I don't know that. But calling out other SEC schools and he also mentioned Miami in this, who is, as best as I know, is doing it by the book. It may be a sleazy book, but they're still doing it by the book.
And Paul, here's where I have a problem with it. I mean, and this one kind of strikes home for me because I'll just openly admit to everybody that I am close to him, and I've seen him go through life, and I've seen him commit himself to a HBCU. So when you bring Travis Hunter's name into it without bringing it into it, right, to a degree that he's committed, spurring Florida State to go to Jackson State with Deion Sanders, to me, like I start getting mad about that because you know why? Deion has issues even busing players to games, right? There have been a lot of things about what they've utilized as relates to their bank and how they've had access to, different naming right deals, different TV deals, where he's had to change the culture to that degree. So when you start throwing Deion Sanders' name in there, who has to deal with Barstool, that actually, he started attacking the game a different way. He started utilizing social media and content and building content around all of his players and the profiles of his players, of young black men who a lot of people feel a certain way about the free labor that's been taken advantage of for so long. So when you start attacking that, a guy that's trying to get back to his community, then I start getting a little bit frustrated. Because I know he's venting, but like when you start going in that direction, I'm like, no, but like we need more of that in our schools, in our communities. Don't knock that. Don't knock because you're not hustling the same way. Appreciate it. Praise it because he's giving back. That's just me personally. I get angry at it.
No, I agree completely with you, and I think the stuff with Jimbo Fisher, that's intramural battles. Yeah. Those are things that go on within a league. But I think he really what is going to go forward. Jimbo Fisher is going to speak in about an hour, so whatever he says is fine. But I'm really interested in what Deion has to say because I think that is going to set the table for the next conversation. And Travis has already responded on Twitter, as I'm sure you know, and he says his situation at home is still the same. And I just don't like the fact that Nick Saban went after Deion and Travis without really any substantiation. I mean, he said, I read it in the paper. That's ridiculous in today's world for a head coach at the University of Alabama to attack another school and say, I read it in a newspaper. Nobody knows whether that's true or not. And frankly, Deion and Travis have denied it. So, and I can assure you the NCAA has not looked into it either.
It'll be really interesting to see. I mean, like you said, Paul, obviously Alabama is still going to be very relevant this season, so I'm kind of confused as to why he even did this. But it'll be interesting to see how everything kind of plays out. Thanks so much, Paul, for your insight.
Between the Celtics and the Heat. From Jason Tatum, I don't think anybody on the Heat team can defend it. This rising superstar has been just magnificent. Tatum, sidestep, three-pointer, puts it in. The third quarter has been the best quarter for the Heat so far in these playoffs. What a turnaround here in this third period. This is a Miami Heat avalanche. With the start that Jason Tatum had, sparked something in Jimmy Butler.
I don't care if it's a big stage or who's watching. I know why I do what I do.
Back in Miami tonight for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Heat and the Celtics, and it's going to be a good one. Jimmy Buckets got plenty of them in Game 1, scoring 27 of his 41 points in the second half to beat Boston 118-107. To talk Game 2, we bring in our friend Brian Windhorst, who's also taking in that Miami sunshine. Wendy, the Celtics have to figure out a way to stop Jimmy Butler. One way to do that would be to have the Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart, on the court. What's the latest on him and Al Horford?
Christine, we got good news and bad news for the Celtics injury front right now. So Marcus Smart has been upgraded to probable. I do believe he's going to try to play tonight. But within the last few minutes, the Celtics just announced that Derek White, who's one of their key defensive perimeter players, is going to miss tonight's game due to personal reasons. So one step forward, one step back in terms of depth. This is a factor because one of the reasons why the Heat were so successful in the second half of Game 1 is that they attacked Peyton Pritchard, who had to play way more minutes than normal. And now, even if Marcus Smart is effective and is able to come back and play close to normal minutes, which we may not want to assume because he's got this sprained foot, with no Derek White, they're going to have to, again, rely on Pritchard. So that's one thing. Now the Al Horford issue. He is listed as doubtful for tonight, and that is not a surprise because in health and safety protocols, typically the minimum you're going to be out is 5 days unless you test out. And testing out has multiple stages and is not simple in terms of timing. So the fact that he would not play in tonight was something the Celtics were prepared for. But they also have the reality that he very well could not be available depending on how he's feeling, depending on how the tests go, for Saturday's Game 3. And you look up and down the Celtics roster. You've got Robert Williams, who is back but still dealing with the knee issue. You've got Jason Tatum dealing with a wrist issue. You've got Jaylen Brown still coming off of a hamstring issue. This is a very good team, but they are not particularly deep. They really only run about 7.5 players. So these injuries are a real threat to this series and their chances at a title.
Wendy, I'm not sure if you know this, but have we found out whether if Al Horford has had a negative test yet or not?
I don't know that. A couple of things that are important, Jay, I can tell you. Al Horford, on the record with the Boston Globe within the last 6 weeks, has said that he is vaccinated. I still am not 100% clear whether he's symptomatic. Ime Udoka, by the way, I should point this out. Ime Udoka missed yesterday's availability due to what the Celtics call the non-COVID illness. And the Celtics have several other positives within their traveling party. So everything right now is a little bit fragile. But the last time we checked with Ime Udoka, he said that Horford, quote, felt fine. So being symptomatic is a factor here. And we don't have an update on how Al is feeling. We'll hopefully get that later today. Wow. I mean, obviously not having Al Horford really hurts the Boston Celtics just because of his ability to spread the floor. But also, Wendy, the experience, right? Like, that is a guy, he's a constant communicator, one of the backbones of the defense, a guy that can communicate to the guards what all the actions are on every single ball screen as that changes due to personnel. And also, like, his ability to make shots, and that allows Bam Adebayo to literally roam the paint. And also that makes it difficult for guys like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown to even get into those gaps to find a way to finish at the rim or kick it out to three-point shooters. But the thing that is interesting most of all is Marcus Smart trying to come back and not be fully healthy. With now Derek White being out, you're still going to need to utilize Peyton Pritchard. And I said it before you came on, Wendy, and I love Peyton Pritchard. I watched him play at Oregon. He's one heck of a player, tough as nails, made some difficult shots for them in Game 1. But there's certain players as an NBA player, when you see them walk on the floor, if you get to an Eastern Conference Finals or semis or a World Championship, or heck, even back in college, if a guy gets hurt, you see him, like, all right, you are going to be the guy. And how you play today will dictate whether your team can stay in this game or whether your team gets beat up. Because Spo will find a way to get Peyton Pritchard to guard Jimmy Butler or get Peyton Pritchard to guard who they want in all the action. And that is a major concern for Ime Udoka and the Boston Celtics. Yeah, and one thing I will say that, the Heat are missing Kyle Lowry. He will miss the game, but they are 7-0 without Kyle Lowry in these playoffs. And one of the reasons is because they get tremendous play off the bench from Gabe Vincent, a guy who's an undrafted player who they've developed throughout the season. The Heat doesn't have the same top line talent, I don't think, as the Celtics, although I'm sure a Heat fan or somebody from the Heat organization would be glad to debate me or you on that issue. But the Celtics' depth is not comparable to the Heat's depth. The Heat could really comfortably play 9 or 10 players in this series without even breaking a sweat. And again, they would probably argue they could go deeper, but realistically, 9 or 10 players. The Celtics are just not at that factor right now. And again, the rest situation, even though we're into Game 2 and there was no travel, the rest situation still favors the Heat. So, a real tough spot for the Celtics to be in. I will say that they are very resilient. Remember, they were down 3 different times in the series to the Bucks, 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2. They have won 4 road games in this playoff so far. So I am certainly not counting them out, but the hand that they're holding continues to deteriorate a little bit.
Wendy's not counting them out. Jay, Will, do you feel like Boston absolutely needs to win this game tonight in order to make this a series?
No, I do not. I still believe they can go home and defend home court, but I'm extremely concerned about this series right now. And for me, not having Marcus Smart fully healthy, Wendy, you went through all the names. Robert Williams coming off that back injury. You talk about Jason Tatum, the dunk on Giannis, the wrist injury, how he's dealing with that. Jaylen Brown coming off injury to a degree. How Marcus Smart guards the likes of Jimmy Butler will be critical to tonight's game. And that will be tested each and every possession. And now not having Derek White, another guy that can initiate your offense or even just spread the floor once again, we understand how pivotal that is when you play a team like the Miami Heat who can shrink the floor when you get into those gaps. Guys have to be ready to shoot. That's a major loss. So, I mean, look, Marcus Smart can help them initiate the offense. I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have to explode. Those two need to be prolific tonight. They need to be prolific. And you need to get some kind of Herculean performance from Marcus Smart in order to compensate for all the pieces that are missing. Because here's the one thing I do know about the Miami Heat. And you talked about Wendy living down there for a short stint. I lived down there for 3 years. I spent some time with some of those guys. When they smell blood in the water, they are sharks. Like, they pounce on that kind of stuff. Or most teams might come in, you might say, well, do they really respect their opponent? They always respect their opponent. And they will play even harder now that they do smell blood in the water.
And they're also a very good home team throughout the season and in these playoffs. They've been terrific here in Miami. The one thing I'll say, the Celtics didn't feel miserable about that outcome in Game 1. They won 3 of the 4 quarters. Now, the third quarter was abysmal. It was an absolute devastating situation. So I know that there's not much of a consolation prize, but the Celtics do feel like they had some traction in some areas. And even though Marcus Smart may not be 100%, having him in there to initiate offense should help Jason Tatum. Where the Celtics lost control of the game was in the third quarter, and they were having to rely on Jason Tatum to initiate offense. He had 6 turnovers in the third quarter alone. Now, 2 of them were Jimmy Butler swatting his shots. It had nothing to do with who was the point guard, but several times he got his pocket picked or threw a pass because he was having to play more point guard, having to bring the ball up. So that should free Tatum up a little bit, and he did, even though he would have what would be called, a below average or below acceptable game because his second half wasn't so great. He still scored over 30 points yet again. He is averaging over 30 over his last 6 games. So Tatum is there. Jaylen Brown is there. The Celtics are still very potent. It's just that their margin for error, which Jay, at this point in the playoffs, your margin for error is so important. Their margin for error is getting very narrow against a team in Miami that, doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
Wow.
You mentioned that third quarter being abysmal. Miami won that one 39-14. So, yes, it was not great. Thanks so much, Wendy.
All right,
Good
Wendy.
seeing you. Have fun in Miami.
Stay cool down there.
Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals might have left those of us looking for a competitive game wanting more. The Warriors blew out the Mavs, and it wasn't really close for most of the game. 34-year-old Steph Curry led all players in points, rebounds, and tied the lead for assists. Jay, it's just us two right now, and I'm going to ask you a question because obviously Stephen A. has an opinion on this that we've heard. What is the gap between the Warriors and the rest of the teams remaining in the playoffs?
Well, first off, I made the wrong bet. I tried to double down on my Memphis Grizzlies bet and lost 2 Tom Ford suits to Stephen A., where I really had him down 1 Tom Ford suit. Anyway, that's fine. It happens. Now we owe each other nothing, and we can start over. But look, the Golden State Warriors are the best team in the Western Conference, but I don't think the gap is that large. I do. This is a game of nuances, right? So we obviously have seen the Memphis Grizzlies be right there when they need to be there with Ja Morant missing the last several games. But it still felt like even when they took that whooping in Memphis, right, when they're down 50-plus points, I mean, that goes to show you about how the Memphis Grizzlies continue to play. They're only going to get better. You have the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, look, we've had Patrick Beverley in here who's created one hell of a stir over the last 3 days.
Right.
But that is the DNA. That is the mentality that now is around a guy like Karl Anthony Towns. Now, we'll find out where D'Angelo Russell went during their playoff series because you can't average 12 points. And a lot of that has been questions around his leadership and how he works. But still, you think Minnesota is only going to get better. Anthony Edwards, he is an absolute beast, a star, right? So you think about that. Phoenix will be back. Obviously, there are questions around DeAndre Ayton. What's going to happen with Ayton? Will they extend him? Those things are looming. But still, CP3, Devin Booker, all these guys are going to be there. So, look, there are a lot of teams. We didn't even talk about the Clippers.
Right.
Like, we have not talked once about Kawhi, Paul George, and how they play. And when those guys are fully healthy with Ty Lue, who understands how to win world championships, how to win division titles, how to win conference titles. Ty Lue is one of the best there is to do that. LeBron James has stamped him, and the Los Angeles Lakers. What moves will they make? And last but not least, and this is one of my dark horses for next year, you will hear a lot about them in the offseason, the Denver Nuggets, man. I am high on the Denver Nuggets. If Jokic can continue to improve, two-time MVP, if they're able to get Jamal Murray back, he was questionable to come back during the playoffs. People want him back. He didn't feel comfortable coming back. With Michael Porter Jr. and his health, with some of the pieces that they have depth. Golden State is the best team, but still, like, an injury happens, things change.
Yeah.
Right? So it will be competitive for them for time to come.
Mari Stoudemire joining us today. Hello. Welcome. Okay, so we're talking about the West. Obviously, the Mavs got blued out last night, right? How big is the gap between the Warriors and the rest of the field?
Well, I mean, it's not that big of a gap. I think the Warriors are somewhat aging a bit, right? So they still have an advantage on a lot of their competition, but teams are catching up to their style of play. So it's not that big of a gap, but they do have an advantage.
In a couple of years, let's say 3 years, where do you think Memphis would be compared to Golden State?
Well, it depends on how players develop, right? Because you got to continue to get better and better each year. Some guys become successful and they say, "Hey, I got paid. I want to relax now," and they don't continue to perfect their craft. And also too about front office wise, who are you going to bring in to support your stars? So it depends on all those intangibles. If that happens well for them, then they can compete for a title hopefully in the next few years.
Here's the thing that's interesting. Like, championship teams and teams that have a long runway have a great combination of experience and youth, right? So, yeah, we've seen Draymond Green have some injuries this year. We've seen Steph Curry have an injury this year. Klay obviously coming back after not playing for multiple years. But Jordan Poole, it's almost like Aaron Judge in the Yankees, right? A guy that's grew up in the system, that understands his place, but also is emerging to be one of the best there is.
Right.
I'm not saying comparable to Aaron Judge because he's the best player in baseball right now. But I am saying, like, Jordan Poole is prolific.
Right.
And there are times, let's be honest, where we always know who Stephen Curry is and Klay Thompson. But there are times when you watch Golden State games, you're like, yo, Jordan Poole might be the best player on the court right now.
Right.
And having that as a young gun in your system that continues to elevate your level of play when you can't do it, like, that's what gives you the thought that Golden State could be around for a long time to come in the next 2-3 years because of the emergence of Jordan Poole.
Wendy, let's bring Brian Windhorst into this conversation because, like I said, obviously the Mavs got blued out last night. How do you view the Warriors after that game last night?
Well, they obviously are still an incredibly formidable opponent, but, when they had these 2 down years that they had, they took that time to, sort of backfill their roster. And so now they have 2 very intriguing young players in Jonathan Kuminga and James Wiseman, who we haven't seen much from yet. Wiseman's basically missed his first 2 years, but he was the number 2 pick in the draft for a reason. And so they, are going to, I assume, sign Jordan Poole to a contract extension this offseason. And they are going to see how they can grow those guys to sort of come in and step in to help Steph Curry in the back end of his prime. But guys, the Western Conference over this next 1 to 2 years, it's going to be incredible talent race because at some point you think the Clippers are going to get healthy again and they're going to rise back to contender status. You look at the Grizzlies, you look at the Wolves, the ascendant teams, you look at the health of the Denver Nuggets. And then Luka, I think it's Luka. I really am believing that it's going to be Luka Doncic's league. And so you give the Mavericks another transaction cycle or 2, plus guys who are going to want to go play there with him. Their upside is great. The reality of the short and middle term of the Western Conference, is the reason why Phoenix's loss was so devastating, because this was a year where that team, which has an older star in Chris Paul, might have been able to shoot the gap, so to speak. And why, if you're a Laker fan, you got to feel a little sick to your stomach, because the Lakers, as they look at the overall talent out there that they're going to have to fight with and what they've got, they don't have anything like that, the reinforcements, even though they've got LeBron and Anthony Davis. So the Western Conference this year, I would say, is maybe in a little bit of a down cycle, but about to ramp up big time. And the good news for the Warriors is they can compete now and into the short-term future.
I just want everybody to know, because I keep saying blued out. I know it's blown out. I'm saying blued out like flued out, but y'all probably don't know nothing about that. Anyways, thanks so much, Wendy. Have fun in Miami. All right, now let's look ahead to tonight's game 2 between the Heat and the Celtics. Boston felt the effects of missing both Marcus Smart and Al Horford in game 1. Now Marcus Smart is considered probable for game 2, while Horford is doubtful. And on Miami's side, they will still be without Kyle Lowry, so injuries playing a role for both teams as the Celtics look to steal that home court advantage. Amari, we now know also that we're missing
Derek White.
Derek White is out for the Celtics.
Okay.
Due to family reasons. So we know that he's out, so that'll actually take a huge hit for the Celtics as well. So is this a must-win for the Celtics team?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a must-win, but you do want to try to steal a game, on the road, right? In the playoffs, if you can get a game on the road, then now you have home court advantage going back to Boston. So I think it's important for them to try to definitely get this win. And I feel as if Jason Tatum is able to establish his dominance in his game, and the team around him can also pick up that, the pace of those guys that we're missing with Al Horford and possibly Smart playing limited minutes depending on how he feels. So you need those other role players to step up big time in game 2. So it's very, very important for Boston to get this win and try to regain home court advantage.
You see, obviously, whenever you try to get a win, whenever you step your foot, just one foot. Look, you saying blue, blonde.
You're welcome.
I'm saying feet, foot. Whenever you set your feet across that line into that square, you're always trying to win the game.
Sure.
The question is that reality or not? Now, I think Boston still has a legit chance to win tonight's game, even though I would favor the Miami Heat. I would take the Heat to win this game. I mean, spread is 3.5 points. I would take that for the Miami Heat.
Right.
Because I don't know what version of Marcus Smart we're getting. And I know how mentally tough he is, but I wonder how hindered he is going to be with that foot. Now, the thing I do know about Al Horford, not only does he space the floor offensively, but man, he is the guy that communicates to everybody defensively how it works. That is probably one of the most understated things that we are not talking about, that you won't hear media talk about, right? People are going to talk about, his spacing and the shooting. And I'm like, no, throw all that stuff out the window. It's important, but not as important as when I'm guarding the ball, if I'm guarding Jimmy Butler and there's screen action coming. Mark, we were in the same draft class, brother. You know this.
Yep.
If you coming up behind me and you're on my team and you don't let me know which way that screen is coming or what the scouting report is, how we're defending it, I'm on an island by myself.
Absolutely.
Right? So now you have guys like Daniel Tyson. I'm not saying he can't do that, or Robert Williams. They're trying to do that to a degree, but it's different than Al Horford, a constant voice that you've had around your franchise for a long time, that guys like Jason Tatum, guys like Jaylen Brown, guys like Marcus Smart trust. There are certain bigs in the league I do not trust. He would have been one of them I would trust. But you know how many times I've had my head knocked off and I'm looking back, my guy Eddie Curry who played with Book, I'm like, Eddie, please, Lord, let me know where this damn thing is coming from.
Absolutely.
That's a huge loss for them.
That's a huge loss. And the thing is, with Al Horford, he's such a great leader. You know what I'm saying? He's battle proven. He's been in the league for a long time now. And you're right. The communicating on defense is a cornerstone for your defense, right? Because as a big, you're the middle linebacker. You see the entire court. You see what's happening. And if you're communicating about different actions, or there's a screen coming up, hey Jay, screen on your left, force him my way, that helps you defend your guy better. And then also the team hears me communicating, and then they can now follow suit and be in position.
Do you think, Ime Udoka, do you think they'll just blitz ball screens with Jimmy Butler and get the ball out of his hands and force guys like Gabe Vincent or Max Strus to beat you, stay home on everybody else? Force those guys to, I know they're good shooters, but force them to make plays.
Yeah, it's a tough deal because you have great shooters with Miami Heat, right? You have guys that can space the court. So you don't want to overhelp.
You got a great shooter sitting on the bench and Duncan Robinson that came in 5 times on the court.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're able to somewhat defend Jimmy Butler by having Marcus Smart on the court, right, you can let him defend him by himself. But you do want to be able to shrink the court and also on your rotation out, be in that passing lane to deter that pass, to make that pass a tougher pass to those shooters, which gives a guy time to get back for the rotation and contest the shot.
When you were with the Brooklyn Nets, how did you guys defend the Miami Heat action? I mean, because there are principles that are similar to Golden State and some of their continuity in which they run. Like, they're a great passing team, and they're great at making reads. Not every NBA team is great at making reads. Might be in spurts, but not the entire length of the game.
Yeah, it's a scramble. It's a scramble game, right? You have your guys you got to focus in on. Jimmy Butler being one of them. Bam Adebayo is another guy who keeps the momentum in the flow of the offense going for Miami. So once you understand how that works and you try to game plan against those guys, you want to have the court shrunk, right? So you want to stop those lanes, man. Jimmy Butler wants to get to the basket. You want to get in the paint. You want to get his shot off inside the three-point line. So you want to try to limit those actions. And the best way of doing that is by shrinking the court and allow your guys to rotate out to the shooters.
Can I ask him one last question before we go? Because
for
this is where I've been today. This is my brain. Jimmy Butler's playing the best out of anybody in the playoffs, correct? Do you agree with that?
Yes, at the moment.
At the moment. Okay, ready? So, real hooper. Is Jimmy Butler a top 5 player in the NBA?
Is he top 5 player in the NBA?
Is he a top 5 in the overall landscape of the NBA? Are you willing to say Jimmy Butler, right now with how he's playing, if you're top 5 players in the NBA, is he top
5? No.
I agree with you.
Is he the best remaining player in the playoffs right now?
No.
Thank you. Who is the best player remaining in the playoffs?
Is he playing the best in the playoffs right now?
He's playing the best. He's playing, that's arguably because Jason Tatum's also playing great in the playoffs now. And you do have Luka Doncic, who's also, to me, is the best player in the playoffs right now today.
Okay, you wouldn't give that to Stephen Curry because of his overall resume, even though he's not playing the best? The championship pedigree, being there.
No, he's right there. But right now, as we speak, I think Luka has shown his, he's playing, this guy's the cornerstone of this team. There's the second fiddle guys on that team is, it's like when LeBron in 07 had, he carried the team by himself and got to the finals. Luka's doing the same thing with Dallas.
I know, but one of the things I'm starting to lose a little bit of steam on with Luka is and I get it, if you're gifted offensively, nobody really cares what you do on the defensive end. But when you talk about LeBron carrying a team, I at least saw there to be an attempted effort, right? And Monica McNutt came on our show and started talking about Cassidy Hubbard last night was saying, yeah, for Luka, Jason Kidd, it's a 2-second rule. All you need to do is hold your guy up for 2 seconds. And we're saying about the best player in basketball, all he needs to do is hold his guy up for 2 seconds. I don't know. I'm just starting to question that a little bit.
Right.
Because I'm on the Luka Doncic train offensively. But defensively, when you can't get him back into the screen after you turn the ball, I'm starting to question it.
That's a good point. Defensively, I think Jason Tatum has the edge on that because he's a two-way player. Luka's not a great defensive player at the moment, so I understand your point.
Okay.
So you're taking Tatum as the best player right now left in the playoffs. Okay.
It's arguably.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fluid, as Stephen A. was saying.
It's fluid. It's fluid. All right. Thanks so much, Amari. Still to come on First Take, Tiger Woods is on the course at the PGA. Tiger Woods is currently 1 under through 8 holes in the first round of the PGA Championship. He has 2 birdies and 1 bogey on the day. And I mentioned Michael Collins, a.k.a. the caddy. He joins us now on First Take. And this is just a beautiful bald moment for all of us. Just looking great. I love it. I love it for us.
Bald and beautiful.
I love it.
This is the
Great
part
to
where
work
makeup
with you.
people come out and panic because they don't have enough powder.
You're shiny. You're shiny.
I know.
Y'all
We're
are
just
too
bringing all the shine. It's great. It's great. Just bringing all the shine. I'm a little bit more mad than you guys.
Stop putting so many
It's
lights
okay.
over our heads. It wouldn't be that bad.
Exactly.
Keep
That's
them
very
in front.
true.
Yeah, see, I'm shiny right now. See, all up. Ridiculous.
I'll help you guys out. We can do that later. Michael, as you look at everything that's happened today, what has stood out to you about Tiger's first round?
Nothing has really stood out about it other than on one of the tee shots he hit, they were talking about, most guys they thought were going to take driver. I think it was on 12, they thought, or 14, where they thought guys were going to hit driver, and they didn't. Tiger went to hit a stinger. He's put a special 3-iron in his bag. That's actually a little bit easier to hit, and when he went to hit that stinger 3-iron, he pushed it just a little bit right and didn't hit his patented Tiger stinger like we've normally seen him hit, and it kind of flared off into the rough, and actually that was the hole that he made bogey on. So other than that, honestly, here's the deal. Today ain't the day I'm worried about with Tiger Woods. This ain't the day for me going, let's see what Tiger does on Thursday. Nah, it ain't. It was like that at the Masters. At the Masters, because we didn't know what Tiger Woods was going to show up. And the fact that he played the way that he did, one of the hardest walks on tour, it was amazing. But then we saw on the very last hole at the Masters on Thursday, he's already out of juice and carried himself the rest of the way through the weekend. Well, now he's had a lot of time to recover, and everyone was talking about, man, Tiger looked great on Monday and on Tuesday. On Wednesday, he looked okay. Today, he looks like better than what he looked in the first round at Augusta, which is awesome. Now it's going to be, what does he look like on Friday? And I think he's going to make the cut, and that's the big day for me is Saturday, is how much juice does Tiger have in the tank for the weekend? Because that's what we're looking at for me, for Tiger, is what is he building towards? Trying to win another major. Well, that's for him is going to be all about stamina. So, you know, we saw him going from looking great on Monday to looking a little bit ginger on Wednesday, walking a little bit slower. And that's okay. To now we see that birdie on the first hole where people lost their minds. Even me, maybe a little bit, but whatever. That's okay. But, you know, you just want to see kind of health-wise where Tiger's at, because that's what he talked about. It's all about the strength and stamina in that leg. So don't worry about today. Look kind of after 9 holes on Friday, and then Saturday, where's his body at then?
Michael, I feel like I'm at this point with Tiger where just having him back on the tour is such a huge win. And I know we automatically, sometimes as fans, what is a great comeback story? It means you need to come back and win majors, right? For me, I'm like, no, like just coming back and being healthy enough to play consistently on the tour is a major championship. And that's a comeback story. That's one for the ages considering what he went through. But I am curious from what you've seen thus far, like seeing him on day 3, day 4 of the Masters, right? How you kind of, your body rocking side to side off that push-up and that follow-through on your swing, you kind of saw that diminish over time and, you know, becoming a little bit compensating in that way. I have the same issue to a degree playing golf. Do you see that a little bit in his swing today? Obviously, you know, that's going to be a major challenge in day 3 or day 4, but do you see that today or no?
No, not yet. Not yet. He's getting through the ball really well. And that's just a testament to, I mean, the ones right now are going to be feeling pretty good. Now, people are going to say, you know, oh, he's walking a little ginger or his gait looks different. Listen, I talked to an orthopedic surgeon, and even talking to Tiger, his walk is going to be what it is. Like, this dude broke that many bones in his foot. Guess what? At that age, after you've had that many knee and leg surgeries and back surgeries, you're not going to walk like you used to ever again. So that part we have to kind of get used to, and you have to be able to tell the difference between when you see a guy whose gait has changed and, wait, is that a limp or is that just how he walks? Because there's a difference.
Yeah, and he's walking, you know, with the club, and he also said that walking is the hardest part of the championship right now. We know that Mickelson won the PGA Championship last year, so we obviously know that we're getting a different champion as he's not there this year. Any names that we should be keeping an eye on that will be in contention come Sunday?
Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, Scotty Scheffler right now, you want to talk about a dude who everything that's changed. And as a caddy, I can tell you him putting Ted Scott on the bag was a game changer for him as well. I mean, this is a guy who's always had real big confidence in his game and knew that he could compete at the highest levels. But when he brought a guy who had 2 major championships under his belt as well, because Ted Scott used to caddy for Bubba Watson and they won 2 Masters together, bringing Ted Scott into the mix, those 2 together are such a dangerous combination. Now, that being said, you know, you look at that scoreboard and that leaderboard right now, and I was out there Tuesday before I caught my flight here to the studio. I saw Rory McIlroy warming up, and I saw him play a couple of holes. And before I left, I told him straight up, as he was walking to play a practice 9 holes, something special happened for you this week. Like, it's going to all come together. And the thing about Rory is when Rory's playing well and it ain't the Masters, you know what he don't have at the PGA Championship? Baggage. He ain't got no demons. He ain't got no baggage. He ain't got no, man, the last time on the 10th tee, I hit it in people's cribs over in the houses over. He ain't got none of that. And you can see it. And he's playing with Tiger Woods, which the first time they put him and Tiger together in L.A. at Riviera, Rory walked off of that course and was like, told us all, I needed Tylenol. Like, that was not fun, even a little. But right now, Rory's like, bring it on. Bring it on. Watch what I do with this driver. Hi-yo!
And Rory got that new Nike deal, so I look forward to see what he's going to do with that. I am curious, though, Michael. Let's get back to something that actually matters. You and Joe Buck are hosting an alternative telecast for the tournament, right? Which is insane, by the way, you two are together. What all do we need to know? Like, what all do we need to know? First off, tell me what we're going to get here with this telecast.
Look at how I'm dressed. Do I look like I'm a normal golf type of dude right now today? Like, this is the Tulsa Drillers' alter ego for the minor league baseball team. Shout out to the Tulsa Drillers. Their alter ego, they're called the Noodlers, which people, have you ever gone noodling? No, I have never been noodling, and no, you ain't never getting me to go noodling neither. But look, imagine what Peyton and Eli Manning do on Monday Night Football. We taking that next level on golf.
Wow.
I got crazy. Both of us got crazy friends that are going to be calling in. Our guest list is stupid. And basically, imagine two guys sitting at a bar watching golf on TV, talking and having fun, and people coming over and sitting with us at the bar. I can't tell you how many people have been like, man, you know what, golf is so vanilla sometimes and boring to watch. It's not
Michael,
fun.
it's called the 19th hole. Give me watching golf at the 19th hole. I'm all for it. I need it in my life. Please. Yes.
Don't think for 1 second that at some point during the show there ain't going to be some ice and liquid in here. And mind your business what it is. Mind your business what it is.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah, as long as by the end, hey, we doing 4 hours. As long as by the last hour, me and Joe, Damn out there. Snap shot.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. Can't wait to watch it. Thank you for bringing this wonderful moment, this beautiful bald moment, all of it, all of your energy, everything to the show today.
All right, MC.
Yep. Hey, ESPN, order more powder.
Wise words. Wise words. Thanks, Michael. All right, everyone knows the competition in the SEC is fierce, and now it's getting feisty. Texas A&M claimed this year's top recruiting class, and it has thrown a spotlight on the unintended effect of it.
In the recruiting last year, A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it. So it's tough.
So meanwhile, moments ago, Jimbo Fisher has now responded to Saban's criticism. Take a listen.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families. That they broke state laws. They're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen, and it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit there and defend 17-year-old kids and families. And Texas A&M, because we do things right, we're always going to do things right. But we're always going to be here. We're doing a heck of a job. These coaches have done a great job. Our players have done a great job. The whole organization of recruiting people. It's despicable that we got to sit there at this level of ball and say these things to defend the people of this organization, the kids, 17-year-old kids and their families. It's amazing. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable. It really is. And it's a shame we have to sit up here and have this conversation about things we do. And it's personal to us. Yes, it is. It's personal to A&M. It's personal to our players. It's personal to our coaches and everybody involved. And I know the guy. Know him really well.
Wow. Some really pointed comments there from Jimbo. Obviously, some pointed comments from Nick Saban on the other side. Called him a narcissist, called him God. What do you think about Jimbo's comments?
Well, first off, Jimbo has every right to be angry. These were reckless accusations that were made without presenting any facts. We had Paul Feinbaum on earlier. Even the comments that were made about Deion Sanders were very reckless at a HBCU in Jackson State because of the way he prefaced the commentary for Nick Saban by saying, well, I read in the paper. Well, now we're stating, look, we as public figures, I know that whenever I speak at an event, there are these out. These are being recorded. I don't know what would push Nick Saban to get to that point where he felt like he had to minimize or demean other, franchises or other, schools or people in order to build his program up. Like, you have all the success in the world. People have considered you to be the GOAT. And I understand that it is challenging now that rules with NIL have changed, but you need to pivot in order to continue to leverage you being Alabama in time. That's what every business does. Let's stop talking about college football and college sports in general like it's all, hey, this is amateurism. That world it no longer exists. What's actually happening right now is people are finally reckoning the fact that we are dealing with business and it's being presented because now people have to be transparent.
Right.
So now you put Jimbo Fisher in a position where he needs to defend himself and his organization and all of his 17, 18, 19-year-old, 20 young men. And then you got Deion Sanders, who is still not spoken yet. I'm curious to hear what Deion Sanders has to say. So I think Jimbo has every right to defend himself, and this is personal. He's calling them names. There is a level of narcissism that comes along with being great at something you do.
Right.
And for Nick Saban to sit up there and to say something like that about Jimbo Fisher and Deion Sanders in Miami, 1,000%, that is a narcissist. Now, look, I may not ever go back to visit Nick Saban again.
Right.
Because and I understand he can hold that against me. But when you sit up there randomly and attack other organizations, when there's no reason for you to even do that in the first place, I think that's extremely petty. And I think, frankly, Nick Saban that's below him to do that.
Right.
It's below him to do that.
Yeah, like Paul Feinbaum said earlier, they're most likely going to win a championship this year. And he's talking about, like you said, HBCUs and talking about Texas A&M. So we'll see.
I want to say one last thing. I know I said it in our hour one, but the thing that really bothered me the most, look, first off, attacking Jimbo Fisher, that's one thing. I get it. It was unwarranted, unnecessary. Jimbo has a right to defend himself. SEC rival.
Right.
Okay. Understand it to a degree. Why are you going to go out and attack Deion Sanders at an HBCU? I did an interview with Deion Sanders for my podcast, The Limits on NPR, and I talked to him for an hour and a half about the lack thereof resources that he's had at Jackson State and how he's had to manufacture making moves by creating a brand, leveraging his own brand, about how he's had to find ways to raise money so they can have the proper busing to games, the proper meals to games.
Right.
And for me, when you start attacking, I'm going to say this personally, a black man who's going back to a historically black college to make a difference,
right.
Why? Why are you attacking anybody, first off, but why that? He's trying to do something to give back. He's actually creating brands around his players. So almost in a way, I want Nick Saban to say, you know what Deion Sanders is doing? He created a partnership with Barstool Sports, and now we know, the masses know to a degree, who these top football players are. But when you start helping them build their own individual brands, i.e. Travis Hunter, who's a big-time player, who now will have a brand built around his whole digital footprint, that's helping him elevate his profile for what is next. By the way, that should be part of the curriculum that we're teaching these young athletes, how to manage this in their own brand, how to not have Twitter fingers that turning into stories and making bigger points that can hurt your image. So that should be part of the curriculum that we teach. We should be applauding that. We shouldn't be demeaning that because now NIL is a real thing. By the way, paying players has always been something that has been done.
Right. It was just happening.
Always been something.
It was just happening.
I feel about John Wooden. Let's be real about it.
Right.
Since the beginning of time.
Right.
But now we're allowed to do it, but now people have problems with it.
Yeah, it was just happening illegally before. So
I don't have the patience for that.
we'll see what happens with that situation. Still to come on First Take, he was 1 win shy of capturing his first Super Bowl in just his second season, but